Hi, good morning to everybody, and welcome to the conference. I've taken my slides, and obviously these things are my personal opinions, and obviously I don't want anybody to think that I'm talking on behalf of anybody else. So I'm going to take you through three sections which I've done. Have things really changed? The beef industry information, which I think some people forget, that we've got to analyze the industry we're in. Success of AMH, how we made it what it was, and the road ahead. And guys, my presentation will be more practical. I'm not going to talk to you about hairy-fairy stuff. I'm going to talk to you about real issues that concern us in the industry, where the industry is going, what do I think is going to happen. And I think you've got to be aware of it. So the questions I've got to ask you, have things really changed in the industry? Do we understand our industry? You know, I go out there and I talk to a lot of dealers and I say, tell me about the industry. And I promise you, some of the answers I get are like, phew. Don't know where it comes from, but I think it's time we actually get to grips with it. Do we step back and try to work out how we adapt to changes in the market? Because the market is changing, customer behavior is changing, and dealerships are changing, and we are changing, and sometimes I think we don't understand what we're trying to do. And I'll give you an example later on. As we are aware of the surrounding and the competitors, are we aware of them? Have the basics of the motor industry changed? Why is productivity so low? And you guys know what I'm talking about. So I'll take you through all these things and try and make you understand. But first I wanted to take you back through the section of the cluttered market. And I just want to give you an example. In 1994, we had 23 brands, 116 models, and the imports were 115. Today, as I stand here, we've got 54 brands, and there's more coming. 427 brands, and the import duty is 25%. And guys, I'll tell you later on what's happening also with that industry, how it's changing a lot. So the market's always been competitive. And you can see there's a few models that have dropped off already. And I'll show you in my next slide where some of the guys have dropped off. And you can see a lot of Chinese have come and gone. Some of the guys have closed up, like Saab, and we can name them. So up there you can see Chevrolet, Chrysler, some of the models they dropped, Daihatsu, Dodge, Aisha. And if models have changed, but if you take the number of models and you take the derivatives, we've got probably close to 3,000 derivatives in the South African market. So customers have choice. And they're different cars all the time. Okay, the issue at the moment is the challenges with EVs. You know, at the moment, 95% of dealers and OEMs dedicate their time to worrying about EVs, whether they experience any tangible benefits. That's all we talk about at the moment. EVs, wow, you know, this is going to take the world by storm. It's going to change South African market. I'm saying, guys, you're dreaming. You are really dreaming if you think it's going to happen tomorrow morning. So I just did a thing. I said, if we stop production of combustion engines tomorrow morning, it's going to take 14 years to have electric cars. Guys, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Because there are other challenges ahead of governments. Because remember, there's two issues here. There's production and government also. If you take the loss of revenue from fuel taxes, oils, all those kind of industries, the government's not going to sit back and just lay back and say, well, we're going to allow EVs just to take over. It ain't going to happen. But potential job displacements and supporting industries. Industry infrastructure development needs. You're going to have them. Government subsidies. Are we going to get them? No. Because they've got other priorities. Battery storage and disposal. It's a problem at the moment. You know, where do you store these batteries? How do you dispose of them? And you speak to dealers. Maybe not so big in South Africa. You talk to guys overseas. They've got bays full of these batteries. They don't know what to do with them. Manufacturing hurdles have got to be overcome. Increased demand on utilities of power and more. And currently unaffordable to the masses. So I really think, and I say this respectfully, I think it's an ego by dealer principals and CEOs, these electric cars. They want to drive them, and so they say, oh, well, these things. But remember, the masses of the guys are going to drive these cars. They're 95% of the market. So I think we're talking about maybe 5% of people who have a disposable income to buy electric cars. So it's not going to happen tomorrow morning. Let me give you an example. In Australia, In 1998, they banned leaded fuel. It took 20 years for that thing to disappear. 20 years, guys. So how do we expect EVs to take over? And that's why I'm saying, yes, maybe in 100 years' time, we won't be around, but maybe in 50 years' time, it could be a different story. But right now, we've got to focus on the combustion engine because that's our bread and butter. Productivity. At the moment, I'm like kind of shocked, I must be honest on it. Maybe I've been out the industry a while, but the average industry is 4.5 cars sold per person. And the salesmen are earning double, like probably 8 to 12,500. Okay, guys, the situation in dealer land is unsustainable due to several factors. And I think David Furlong had touched on a few of them. You see pressure on margins and competitive intensified because it's going to happen. Remember, the market is competitive. Decline in overall income per unit. Heightened pressure on all-round dealership operations. There's pressure all around the dealerships. Stagnation in the growth of the new car market. And I'll touch on that new car market growth because everybody thinks the new car market is just going to keep growing. Well, guys, ain't going to grow. I can tell you that right now. Well, certainly not in South Africa for many years. So something must change. We need to address the root problem. Is it productivity, accountability, inadequate sales training, or low qualification of customers? That's causing the issue. Do we have a minimum standard in place? I don't know. Do you measure productivity correctly? These are basic things that we've got to ask ourselves. Is management the problem? And the final thing is, have we diminished the role of a salesman? Guys, when I go to dealerships and I talk to salespeople, they actually got no clue how to sell a car. And I'm not saying everyone, because obviously not everybody falls it, but the majority of people have got no clue how to sell a car, how to interact with a customer. So what they do when a customer walks in, the first thing, take him to the F&I. So I'm saying, well, why do you need a salesman? Might as well just have employee F&Is or runners, whatever you want. But there's a huge problem in terms of salespeople. So we'll deal with that a little bit later on. So to me, that's an issue. Affordability. Let's talk about that because that is key to the growth of the South African car market. 7.1% or 11% of the South African population pay taxes. 5.7% of taxpayers earn over $1 million. We have 16.7 million people unemployed. Our informal sector is 28% of the economy. It's a huge amount of money. Those guys don't run in and buy cars. They might buy used cars. Sales occur worldwide, and I've done the study 100 times when I was in the importers, between 6 and 8% of the tax-paying base, which means our car market will be around 500,000. And that tax-paying base, guys, is declining, which means the car market, new car market's under pressure. Ain't going to change tomorrow. But even if you say that, remember, we're still the 25th biggest, in the 25th upper quartile car vehicle markets in the world. So how bad is it? We make it bad because we perceive it. But the car market is actually very good. It's what we do to get our fair share that creates the problem. And I'll come back to you about the leads and all these kind of things that everybody runs around chasing. Dealer challenges, new cars. The market will be under pressure and mainly controlled by the OEMs. Remember, the new cars, OEMs getting more and more the clause into it in terms of service plan, maintenance plan, dictating margins being controlled by them. So they're really controlling it. It's becoming a franchise. Services, the OEM control the services. So through the maintenance plans, through services, and all those kind of things. So there's little opportunity for you to upsell. I'm not saying there's not, but you've got to work your area if you want to become successful in that. Parts, parts also, if you're linked, because it's linked to service, the maintenance plans, which is controlled by the OEM. Unless you have, so you've got to focus on aftermarket and panel if you want to grow that business. The opportunity is on used cars and demos, which constantly outpace the new cars. But you've got to, why don't we specialize in this and focus on lucrative market? Because that's where the big growth market's going to be here. Because as the pressure, as our rand devalues, and we'll show you just now, used cars will be the order of the day. People will buy used cars. New car affordability. I did a thing for you guys, and I just hope it's thing. In South Africa, new cars are 393,000 on average. Yearly income in South Africa is 303,000. And what I did is I took the net income payment and I said, how much of that goes towards those cars? It's 48% of the guy's net salary, single person, goes to pay a car. You go to Australia, if you do the same calculation, it's 8 months. If you go to America, it's six months. And people say to me, but your price of cars in South Africa are crazy. I say, remember something, everything is dollar linked or euro linked. We don't buy cars in rands, we buy cars in dollars. So as long as we continue to diminish the rand, the car prices will keep going up. Incomes don't keep pace with the thing. If you take the dollar, since 1994 to today, has depreciated by 550%. So we have a real issue with the rand versus the dollar. And that is why the price of cars are going up. And people are not keeping pace with it. And that's putting more pressure on new car sales. It's an affordability issue. The car market, just to take you through the car market since 1994. You know, everybody says, oh, it's tough today, and it's this. And I'm going, well, guys, we've been through this before. We survived it. We managed. But we had to work. We had to get back to basics. Nothing is just going to happen. And I think this is something you guys have got to bear as dealers or dealer groups. Nothing just happens. You've got to make it happen. If you go to 1994, the car market was around getting to 400,000. Then we had the Asian crisis where interest rates went to 25%, 98. The market didn't collapse. Yes, declined a bit. We survived. Then you had 9/11 in 2001. Didn't collapse. And these are big events, guys. Then you had, obviously, in 2006 with the boom of minerals with China. We thought, phew, this is when everybody was running around. We're going to sell 1 million cars in 2020. Ian Robertson and what's his name? Ronnie Watson from Westbank were running around. Everybody was gloating. Dealers were running around building fancy dealerships. And we sort of, in AMH, just kept building smaller dealerships and never spent so much money on it. Then we had the subprime crisis, the financial crisis in Asia. The market survived. Yes, maybe not what it was, but we went through that. We survived. Then we had low interest rates come in, pushed the market up, and then interest rates went up. Then what happened was, in 2000, we had a honeymoon period. And unfortunately, that period of COVID, every dealer thought, I'm a genius. Don't tell me how to sell a car. I know exactly. I can tweak it. You guys don't know what you're talking about. Okay. 3 years later, everybody's saying, whew, maybe I need to revisit my genius. How clever I was, how good I was. But we forgot all the basics. That's what's happened. The vehicle movement segment. And this is important we understand. Where's the market going? If you take hatchbacks, have decreased from 46% to 38%. Sedans have decreased from 14% to 7%. The big market is USUVs and crossovers. We have gone from 35 to 51 over the last 5 years. So if you're a dealer, where would you be focusing? Certainly not on the sedans. You'd be looking at the crossovers, 4x4s, and you pay a little bit extra to get those vehicles because that's where the market is. You know you're going to sell it. But these are the kind of things that dealers, I think, don't do and don't understand. And the LDVs, that market is declining because people are buying double cabs. Why? Because they can use it for both purposes, for commercial and the private things on the weekend. So double cabs is a big issue. And if you look at luxury cars, from 2014, I mean, it's declined from 77,000 to 30,000. It's an affordability issue. And it's not going to go back there again because their cars are very expensive, luxury cars. That market will be small. Now, I always just say, guys, at the end of the day, at one point, we had, I think, 14 or 15% luxury cars. It's unsustainable in the long term. And, yeah, so I think we're becoming normalized, normal market, competitive. So it depends where you want to be. And there are opportunities in this market. Imports to South Africa. Now, this is a very controversial subject at the moment about car manufacturing in South Africa. I mean, 60% of all vehicles sold in South Africa in 2022 were imported. NAAMSA, as per NAAMSA, 80% of vehicles sold in 2022 were imports. of passenger cars. Of the total market, I think it's 65%. David's saying 70%. And Indian origin, 40% came from there. Last year was 42%. China is 35%. That's only starting. So the question is, you've got to ask yourself, is manufacturing relevant in South Africa? Because I go around to dealers, Nissan's closing the MP200, that's gone. I said, guys, they're going to import cars. We'll be more and more importers of vehicles. So I'm not sure that's long-term, we're going to produce cars in South Africa. And I know everybody says, yeah, but we export. Yeah, but that's with government subsidies. Can the government afford those subsidies in the long term? I doubt it very much. But it's not going to play out now, it'll probably be 5 years' time. But just remember, the car industry is not going to die. It might switch from local to imports. Yes, I accept that. But more and more cars are being imported because they're cheaper to manufacture. They've got scale. We haven't got the scale in South Africa. And I believe it's going to be a challenge going forward for the local OEMs. And I see imports just keep growing. To what thing? Because the other thing is, you've got to remember something. Chinese, if you take the Chinese where it is now, I've just put the slide up to show you where the cars actually come from. If you're interested, you can see where they come from. But if you take the Chinese market, if the Chinese get going, remember, the Chinese are probably at about 5% now of our market. They're going to get to 15% in the next couple of years. Whether we like it, don't like it, that's going to happen. In Australia, it's already 10%. This year, it's running at 13%. It's going to grow. So you'll have maybe 90% imports then. Okay. Am I rushing this thing? Because I've got pulled. I know, I'm giving you a time limit, so I'm just giving you all the facts. But if you need your answers on this, some of these things, happy to debate them with yourselves and talk it through. Let's take lead generation. It's another issue with dealers. Give me more leads. I'm saying, guys, when I do the analysis, and the conversion ratios are poor. Why? I mean, as aggregators across we produce 7 million unique visitors on websites monthly. 7 million. I mean, guys, well, the guys are doing their jobs. They're getting to the people. The problem is, if you convert that to sales, it's 2.1%. Now, obviously, you've got to take out people who just read things and all that. And you'll see the closing ratios when people come into a dealership. And we'll give you the stats just now. Because in my mind, you almost got to see 25 people to close one deal. Because we're not qualifying people. We're just processing the paperwork, even if they don't buy. So are we fishing where the fish are? Are we receiving enough leads? Or we're falling short? I mean, you can't get more leads. I mean, 7 million unique leads a month is, and the population who pay tax is 7.1. Yes, the rest of them want to buy cars, but they can't afford them. Do we comprehend the dynamics of advertising? Everybody's an expert in advertising now. If I do it this way, if I go to Facebook, I go to TikTok, I go, yeah, there. I'm saying, do you understand it? We just want social networking of these things. I don't know. Are our sales players managing non-traditional leads? And we'll show you just now a graph of leads coming into dealership. Now, people research cars. I accept that. We are actually measuring. Are we actually measuring each marketing channel? I'm not sure we are. We just throw numbers in the air because somebody told me and somebody's given me the information. It's unsustainable to continue to generate more leads. Because the market's that market. Market's 500,000. You can't get more leads out of that. That's per year. Are salesmen being held accountable? Are salesmen fulfilling their responsibilities? In my mind right now, no. Because of management. I'm not going to do with a salesman because we have taken a foot off the accelerator. What is the average time spent with a customer? Do we know? When I worked in Australia many years ago, we used to measure how long you spent with a customer. We used to actually time it. If you'd spent less than 40 minutes, there was no deal. Do we do that? No, we don't. I can tell you right now. If you ask most people, no clue. I ask the dealerships these things. And then the other thing is this database that every dealer runs around. I've got a database. I'm saying, guys, let me give you an example. And I learned this many years ago. If you're not a bank, or a financial institution where people come to you every month, that database diminishes. And we did an exercise with one of the dealers we had there because we kept arguing about this point. And I said, let's do it properly. You know, at the end of the day, the database was 30% live in the first world country after a year. Because people left, changed addresses, didn't receive the summons, whatever the case was. And I'm saying, when you've got a database, make sure it's live. Because I can tell you now, if your database is 10% live, you'll be lucky when you do the analysis. And you waste so much money, energy on this database. I'm saying, well, have a look at it. Lead spread, seasonality. Is there seasonality in our industry? Absolutely not. Guys, maybe March and I think April, March and August is probably 2 good months. But the rest of the months you can see, 7, 8%. Doesn't vary. And leads in those months don't vary. So there's no seasonality. Oh, March I'm going to have a big month, and this month I'm going to have a slow month. It doesn't work like that. Because people don't think like that. People want to buy a car, it takes some time, and they come into the market and they buy it. They don't wait for this month and that there's a special. It doesn't work like that. So often I go to dealers, they say, next month's going to be better. I say, why? I say, no, because it's a longer month. It's a shorter month. It's this month. I've heard that all before. He's got a story about why it's going to be better. And I'm saying the reality is, you can see there's 2 months, which is March and August. The rest of them, that's probably when they get their bonuses, get payout, spend all the money. But the rest of the year is probably average. Lead conversion. This is the one that I'm saying, if you're in this ballpark, that's where you are. That's what it is. If you take new cars, we're running at probably 5% lead conversion to deals. If you take used cars, probably closer to 9%. On the average, about 6%. So it means 15 people for you to do a deal. You've got to see 15 customers to do a deal. That's why when dealers say, our leads are no good, you're getting junk leads. I'm saying, but that's what the industry is at the moment. You're going to get a lot of people who don't buy cars. They would like to buy cars. But the conversion ratio is that we've got to upskill our salespeople to manage this process, which we're not doing. Traditional leads versus internet leads. Now people say to me, sure, but everybody buys. I'm saying, hang on. The stats will show you. People will research the car online. People will do all these wonderful things. But they still come to a dealership to experience the purchase. And the stats have showed us 37% of people will give you the information online. But the rest of them will research. They'll spend about 6 hours trying to do this and then come back into the dealership and buy a car. And it's a treatment that we do. That's the problem. There are more processes being created via traditional sources of the lead contacts, like phone-in, walk-ins, stadiums versus internet sources. So you've got to jack up your salespeople. And that's what we forget. Everybody thinks everybody's buying cars online. No, but people still come to your dealership. They come and buy cars because a lot of people are coming into the dealership. It's the treatment they get. So hopefully that gives you a real picture of where we are at the moment. So I'm happy to chat to you guys about it. Anybody wants to know more about these things. The successes of AMH. What was our success? We weren't any geniuses, guys. Well, let me just go. Okay. Import and distribution. We ran focused importers with their own teams. We ran focused dealerships with our own team. We separated the two. We never contaminated the two. We deliberately had many brands, but we're not sure which brand would become the winners. That was R&D. People say to me, why do you have this Zotche? Why do you have this? And I say, well, you never know. Kiss 100 frogs, one will be a prince. Don't know which one. But that was my philosophy. Kiss 100 frogs, buddies, one will be a prince. I don't know which one. If I knew it, it'd save myself a lot of money. But we certainly did that R&D. Anybody came to us, or we chased them. We had young Pedro who spent most of his time in China looking with Errol, a gentleman from Bidvest in those days, well, McCarthy's. Errol Richardson, we sent him to China with Nicholas and just go and have a look what's available. And some of those cars, you didn't want to sell them because, man. But we did R&D and that was the philosophy. We owned our bond stores, we owned our properties and dealerships. That was sort of the motto. We selected a site, we owned it, and we built a dealership. And a lot of them, even today, in prime locations. But we also certainly, what we did do, we created a sideline, which is this liquid capital that David mentioned. We created financial services. We kept the dealer lean and mean. And this side, we skimped the money. Service plans, extended warranties, different leasing options. In fact, we used to rent the demos from the leasing company to the dealer. Now, people say to me, that's madness. So I'm saying, yeah, but mate kept the dealer on his toes because he knew he had to pay that bill every month. Demo plan. Because what happens with demos, and it's just the thing that I had, if you put in a dealership, people forget about depreciation. It's not a cost. It's no capital in. I'm saying, guys, it costs money. So we used to separate the two and charge them a fee. The joint venture with the banks, we kept it there. So we forced the dealer to use the banks, and we obviously did a deal with them. And we then continued to look for businesses that were allied and supported AMH businesses. And eventually that became my retirement plan, because I'll give you a big story. So when we did the deal with Imperial and I sold out, they said, these little businesses, just, we don't want this. There's no return on effort. I said, look, I'll take them over. And that's how C2D was created, because nobody sort of accepted the principle of what we did. What is our success at AMH? Never forget that we, to retain distribution brands, we had to be very good retailers, because we had to move the metal. People say to me, but the imported people buy them. I say, hang on, in the early days, probably the first 10 years, maybe 8 years of importers' life, nobody wanted the dealership. We're not going to sell cars. It's not going to happen. My investment, you're too expensive. Oh, you don't want to hear the stories. I can write a list of them. And today, I'll say this respectfully to some dealers, guy comes with an Armada, I want you to invest in $1 million on signage. Don't worry. I'm saying, phew, how things have changed. So the one thing we did do was a measurement of activities, which we created the road to a sale. It was prospecting from various sources, meet and greet, qualify, presentation, demos, valuation, trial close, finance, delivery. We ensured that we measured every dealership and reported up the line. That's what our thing. What's our motto? You've got to measure every activity in the dealership. And we constantly measured them. We did. I used to measure them. I used to check on them. Harvey Adler used to check on them. Ross Rapala used to check on them. Even the importers used to check on them. But we measured every activity. And unfortunately today, if I go to a dealership, I'm not saying they don't do it, but it's half-hearted measurements. Retail and building value. What was my philosophy? Customers only repurchase cars every 40 months. Remember, when a guy walks in, he doesn't buy a car every day. Every 4 years, maybe 3.5 years, depends on the thing. That's when he buys a car. Customers didn't automatically see the value in upgrades and new models. They didn't see it. Customers lost touch with the value versus the retail price. Product loyalty became a thing of the past, and customers wanted the value for money. We built value in customers' minds. So our motto was, every customer, every time, we need to build value in their minds. That was the whole thing. Road to sell. How did it come about? So let me explain to you what happened. Was in 1995 when we did Renault. I'll never forget this. We got the French in, we got publicists in, we got everybody who say, how are we going to get this thing to market? Like good marketing people and good advertising agencies, you know what? You must build the brand. Yep. So what do? Invite all the old Renault customers. We'll have a big do for them in, I think it was Centurion, and they'll be your word of mouth and your advocates and all these kind of wonderful things. So being a bit of a novice in that, we said, okay. So we did this. We invited, I think it was about 250 people on Renault 5's owners. And we can now launch in the Laguna. So we take them all there and we do the speech and the product presentation. We did everything. But we never built value in the customers' minds. And when we told them the price, half the old guys fell off the tables because they're like, my God, it's the price of my house. And you heard all these kind of comments. We quickly realized we're not going to sell cars by doing this. So we had to change tact. So we at the senior level would present the road to a sale. We came up with a system that said, If you don't build the value in customers' minds, we're not going to succeed. Roadside became core to the way we did business. It was preached by everybody, all senior people. That was it. When you had a meeting, the road to sell was put on the table. And this wasn't product training. It was separated because people confuse. You know, when I say to a dealer, why don't you do road to sell? The steps how to sell a car. They say, no, it's not my problem, it's the manufacturer's problem. I'm saying, guys, manufacturers don't sell cars. Manufacturers produce cars. The manufacturers will tell you everything about the engine, and they'll compare you, but they've never sold a car. You guys we sell cars. We have got to do that job. This was a systematic approach on how to sell a car and engage with a customer. This approach meant to build value in customers' mind. No one buys anything unless you see value, even yourselves. No matter what you buy, you only buy it or you part with your money because you see value. Otherwise, you don't buy it. This is how we did it. We had a spiel, and we came to the build value. We take them around the car. We always said you go from the left, you start at the engine, and you walk left. If the customer goes right, you pull him back to the left. And people used to laugh and say, oh, but you're crazy. I said, no, because when the guy goes right, he goes into the driver's seat and sits there. So that's what you want. You want to take him around the car from the left-hand side. And you build the value, and every time you open the door, you tell him the benefits and all those kind of things. By the time he gets to the driver's seat, he's ready to go for a test drive. That's how we built value in the customer's mind. Because remember, when a customer comes into your dealership, you say it's 100,000, he looks at himself and goes, shit, I thought it was about 20,000. And remember, by doing a systematic approach, you build that value. It goes from 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 to 70. And when he sees value, he parts with his money. But if he doesn't see value, he doesn't part with his money. Your customers are in the market and they know their competitors. They've done the research. Don't kid yourself. We take 3 competitors. We highlighted our best points versus the competitors. We focused on our benefits. I just want to give you an example of the comfortable zone. In 1998, had Daihatsu. Daihatsu Cora was $850, $39.95. Corolla was $1,300, $29.95. There was a 10,000 difference. And there was a Golf as well. And we said to ourselves, how the hell are we going to sell these things? In those days, safety standards in South Africa were very poor. So we latched onto the crumple zone on this Cora. So when you had an accident, the engine collapsed, fell underneath your feet. The Corolla fell on your lap. And we used that all the time. It was a safety issue. So your kids and your wife are danger. You need to spend the money. And that's how we did it. We built value, pointed out these things, which I don't think we do today that much. All this led to better closing ratios, value in customers' mind outweighed the retail price, and more cars on the road. And that's how we built the business. There was no genius around. We just simple, basic trading conditions. Dealer display, what was our differentiation? How could we stand out like our competitors? We had price board, we had balloons, colors on the floor that stood out. You know, I'm amazed. You go past some of the dealership stands, they're just bland. Cars are parked, price board on there, and that's it. Focus on the current way we display cars. We used to focus. You know, was it red? Was it blue? Was it this? Well, that? We mixed the colors. We just didn't park in. And we did weekly boot and bonnet checks to make sure when the customer opened the boot and bonnet, that the car was right. The question we always asked ourselves, were our dealers attractive? Would the customer stop and look? What were the specials? Were there flipboards for the weekends? A flipboard means there's a weekend special or whatever you want to do. So Monday to Friday was this weekend when people browse around, and people still browse around no matter what you think. We used to flip the board so they could come back on Monday. Were our stands clean and tidy? And finally, would we invite the customers to come back? Would it invite the customers to come back? We kept the pressure on dealerships, certainly myself, coming from the retail business. We used to regularly check on them. We sent someone to take photographs. Unbeknown to them, take photographs, come back, give me the pictures, and I'll go through the regionals or I'll get stuck into them. Conduct mystery shopping on a regular basis and keep dealers on their toes. We used to do mystery shopping. Send a guy in. And there are people who do this for a fee. How do you treat your customers when they come into your dealership? We used to visit dealerships unannounced. Even myself, I used to pick dealerships and just pop up and say, oh, let's go through this, let's have a look. The condition of your cars, some product training. I always ensure that dealers were overstocked. Nothing makes the dealer sell cars when he's overstocked, because he's got to move this metal. So it's also one of the things. We ensured that DPs couldn't just come in and just park a car. Their parking bay. That parking bay was full with used cars or a new car. And we ran in-house dealer product training sessions. So that was sort of what we did at the time. The dealer rules. So when we said to a dealer, people ask me, well, how do you treat your dealers? We hired strong traders, then monitored them. Let me give you an example. I don't know if you guys know the Blood Diamond movie. There was a movie called Blood Diamonds. And the guy walked in, and he said, and I said to him, he came from an interview, senior guy, accountant. I said, who do you work for? And he said, I'm the accountant for Blood Diamonds. I said, buddy, you got the job. We don't have to go further. We appointed him. And it turned out okay. So we made sure that we appointed traders. We gave them the liberty to trade. We encouraged fast starts, weekly incentives, monthly bonuses on volumes attached. We set the guy, here's a budget. Make sure every week you put something on the table for the guys. Have a fast start, whatever it is. Incentive our guys to sell cars. It's nothing like put some money on the table and the guy sells it. But most dealers wouldn't do that today because, and I find this very funny because, I go to dealers and I talk to them and all I hear is about RIC, return on capital invested, stock turns, this, and I'm saying, what's that got to do with you? Your job's selling cars. Let the accountant worry about that. But it's amazing how that whole thing of financial controls has filtered through to salespeople. And I'm saying, guys, just separate the two. They are traders. Remember, you've got managers, DPs who are traders. Let them trade. Yes, accountants have got to control the other side of it. But you can't make them the gatekeepers as well. Other checks, internal audits, you go around and check monthly and do the M&M comparison. In fact, Harvey Adler used to sit every month for 2 days, got all the stock sheets from everywhere, and we used to compare it to M&M. And we could tell you which dealership was over-trading or under-trading. We did that every month, and I mean, we were talking about probably 100 dealerships. A hell of an exercise we did, but we did that every month. We checked the latest documents. We had a guy going around, internal auditor. Trade deals had to be loaded on online platform. We said, guys, we created our own, as you all know, today's Bid for Cars, own platform. We said, trade cars have got to be loaded. Take out the human intervention. Just load it, and we'll sell it. And it was successful. We had monthly verification I told you about. And then we created a kitty in used cars. We said, if a used car gets traded in, we create a kitty. That money doesn't get spent by anybody. At the end of the month, we used to take it and write off mishaps. Because guys overtrade and do these kind of crazy things. And that kitty, we used to take that money and just correct our stocks. It used to be done every quarter. Because we could see. And we say, how much is your kitty? And we could work it out. You sold so many cars, you should have so many in the kitty. We can use that money to write it off. It never affected our profitability. Because it was part of the cost. It was part of the cost. That was it. No other discussion. It wasn't added to the... It came in, the car was loaded, and that was it. That's how we did it. Other things we did. Monthly, I used to check on the debtors list. I used to get a debtors list every month. On a Sunday afternoon, I used to write to the guys about these debtors. Because, dealers are like, collection of money is another issue. And then we also gave feedback to the operational staff via the branches. Like new and used car margins, parts performance, their margins, workshop performance, back-end income, ratios, closes. I mean, Ross used to run, Richard Quarter used to run the thing on dealerships, the Imperial Select, and we gave them feedback. Hyundai used to do it. So we knew what was going on. But it took hard work, guys, to do these type of things. Activities. Activity comparison to the peers. We used to compare. And we were the same group. We used to compare. Why? How come you're getting so many leads? Why are people not doing so many demos? Why aren't you people doing so many presentations? And we compared. Then we kept that pressure on. And we had a 21-point sales plan for all salespeople. Dealer demos. Demos had to have demos available, all of them. Because we were the importers. This was controlled set to ensure the stock correct depreciation happened. Correct depreciation leads to higher turnover and stock demos. Because if you write them correctly, you can sell that car. Brand building, in my view. Sure, running out of time here. New cars building was OEM responsibility. It wasn't our responsibility. We said that's an OEM problem. The dealers had to build their own brand through a used car, which was Imperial Select or Hyundai Select. We built those, we had those two, Hyundai Select and Imperial Select. We built the used car brand because that was the one that generated the capital, the money. The brand has to be built by the OEM. And I find it amazing some of the dealers today, they're trying to do what the OEM should be doing. I'm saying, no, guys, remember, they spend millions on building their brand. You don't have to do it. You've got to take that money and put it into used cars, generate the used car sales. So dealers must always promote the brand they sell in the new car attraction in their PMA, because that's where your people buy cars, is in your prime market area. They don't go buy cars in Cape Town, a new car for here. Very few people do that. Build your own used car brand for the broader market, which can be trusted. But you've got to spend time with that. Right, navigating. So I've got 15 minutes. The market has been and always will be competitive, guys. Let's accept that. COVID was a honeymoon period and won't be repeated anytime soon. Oh, trust me, that COVID era ain't going to be repeated. Competition will continue to intensify. Are we different from other markets? In mature markets, competition is fierce. I mean, I remember when I went to Australia, we used to sell cars at cost. That's how it started. And we built value in it. Currently, there's an oversupply of new cars, and the trend will continue. Manufacturers are not going to stop producing cars. OEMs will always push dealers to carry more stock and increase sales. It's going to be a fact of life. You'll have that OEM visiting you and saying you should carry more stock. We got the floor plan. We're going to shove you with cars. Today, we have lots of tools available to us. Many enablers to assist us, assist management, like CRM system, aggregators, portals for easy uploading of vehicles, valuation systems with price indicators, data storage, stock management, electronic signatures, asset management, electronic service booking systems, auction platform for trade with disposal of excess stock, sales training, portals which are gamified with certification. We have a lot of tools available to us. The issue here, leaders, someone must check that this is used correctly and they deliver the outcome the dealer wants. That is the biggest problem. You have all these things, but nobody actually spends time, quality time, in saying, let me analyze it so it gives me the outcome I want. Because you've got all of it. Today you've got all of it, promise you. You know more about your dealership if you spent just maybe an hour a week and spent and did something. Vehicle aggregators, do they work? Absolutely. The trick is to measure it successfully. They work, guys. You can see, I told you, 7 million they reach. So the problem is, do we measure it correctly? Have we got the trained people to do it? Current problems, IT world has become specialized and complicated. And coming from the dealer side to my side, I promise you, it's another world. Just give you an example. You know, everybody chases Google words, and you know what I'm talking about. We currently in the industry on new cars are spending 3,000 per Google word. Before advertising, before anything else. I mean, that's madness. 3,000 just to buy those words. And who's making the money? Google. They're making a lot of money out of this. The other problem is we have poorly trained market managers in today's digital world. You know, people often here, I've taken her, this person I made them the marketing manager. I'm saying, does she understand? Does she know what's going on? If not, get somebody to teach them. Or get somebody that understands that world. Lack of skill and understanding of IT departments. You know, DP ain't going to understand how IT department. It's a different business, different world. And dealers trying to be IT specialists. There's quite numbers. I'm going, phew. But, you know, we just got to be very careful, very mindful. I think dealers should do what they do best. Is to sell cars. That's what we've got to do. Manage the current sales process. Manage the business. Ensure daily targets and processes are adhered to. Outsource websites and aggregate process. Manage the process at arm's length. Make sure, and have suppliers more accountable. So you've got to separate the two. Because you can't be a specialist in the IT world. I promise you it's a different world completely. But it's something dealers have got to look at. Important factors to understand. Do you have measurement tools across your dealership that is used to check daily activities and are actioned? Do we? This is not a financial measurement. This is an activity measurement. Separate the two, because often there's this confusion, oh, but this is what the boss wants. I'm saying, no. At dealerships, we sell cars. We make it happen. Financial is a different thing. Let's separate the two. You actually got to separate the two. In sales department, F&I, service, parts department. Do you measure the brand vehicles into the PMA correctly every month? How many vehicles do we sell? Because that gives you the service. Because they're all linked to maintenance plans and service plans. This will promote you after sales. Remember, business is simpler than what we think. Make sure the activities take place and the financial gain will follow. Do the activities right, and I'm telling you, the deals will come. The other thing, which I'm a very sort of critical guy about this thing, do we need Facebook and TikTok? People are advertising on that. I'm saying, it's not where you should. Nobody buys cars on those platforms, but dealers insist on that. But that's people do research on cars and what they want to buy. Yes, they're online rather than in dealerships. They spend approximately 6 hours researching cars. They choose roughly 3 dealerships, and then they visit them. What is the dealership role? Is to give great service, make customers feel welcome and important. Acknowledge the decision is correct. The customer knows more about that product than what you think. Spec-wise, he knows. It's just how you get the value in, or your dealer stands out. Chinese vehicles. Guys, they're coming. Don't kid yourself. You've got to be part of the Chinese. Whether we like it, don't like it, it's a fact of life. Chinese are going to be, in my estimation, in the next 10 years, 25% of the world car market. They'll produce them. They'll subsidize them. We've got to be there. If you take just brands in South Africa, I think 10% in the next 5 years minimum be in South Africa. China's will be the next powerhouse. We already have 5% market share here. They're competitive, the price is right, and economy will push vehicle manufacturing because it creates jobs and opportunities and downstream manufacturing. Australia, in 2022, had 10% of the market, Chinese had. Today, they're on track for 16% this year, on 2023. Australia already has 6 brands, Geely, SRC, Great Wall, Haval, BIC, you can name them. New Zealand expect Chinese vehicles to achieve 30% of the market by 2030. Guys, the Chinese are coming. But the issue here about Chinese coming in, don't overinvest. It's got to be a bolt-on right now, and slowly as time goes on, you can have separate standalone. Multi-franchise versus standalone. Roughly 1,500 car dealers in South Africa today, franchises. Dealers retail about 25 cars on average. Guys, rule of thumb, if it's less than 5% market share, it's got to be multi-franchise. You can't put it standalone. I don't care how good you are. And rural areas should be all multi-franchise. There's no discussion. Dealers' investment required in standalone is becoming unaffordable. The signage, and you know they're going to change it every 3-4 years. So you've got to do the maths. Rationalization of dealers will take place, I promise you. And going forward, multi-franchise will come in. There'll be rationalization of dealers, even by the OEMs today. I think maybe Toyota will escape it because they're quite big. The rest of them, I can't see it. Because you're not going to have the throughput, because competition is going to be there. It's going to force a shrinkage in the throughput of those brands per dealer outlet. You're going to have other dealers there to make it happen. The question I always ask people, how many vehicles do you have to sell of a brand when you open the doors? When you take on an Armada or whatever it is you're going to take on, and the additional investment. I say, but that's capital expenditure. I say, I accept that, but somebody's got to pay for it at the end of the day. Whether you write it off in 5 years, 2 years, whatever, you know it's 5 years the cycle, you've got to write it off. What is the cost? Do the exercise properly, because people always take the gross. I'm saying it's about the net, not about the gross. Conclusion. Just to give you a conclusion, I think we're on time. Whew. There's no overnight remedy for instant success, rather than a systematic approach to change your business. It'll take probably 60 days before you can see benefits. You know, when I go to a deal and I say, if you do this, and they say, yeah, but I tried it for a week, it doesn't work. And I say, guys, you can't change everything in a week. It does not work. You know, people are resistant to change. People say, well, I did it like that yesterday. Why must I do it like this today? And I'll tell you, it takes time. Management must walk them through the future vision daily until it becomes a habit. That's the only way you're going to change the habit of people. Managers and DP and GM need to dedicate the process when necessary. Dictate the process when necessary. Sometimes you have to use the axe. Too often I go to a dealership and I say, guys, but you're not producing. Why don't you do something? Oh, we can't fire people because we can't find them. And I hear about it. I'm saying, guys, there are 60 million South Africans. There must be some good guys out there. You've got to have a training school. You've got to do proper selection. I accept that initially, but there are good salespeople there. Percentage-wise, there are good salespeople in South Africa, no different to Europe and in South Africa in a percentage terms. We've got to find them. But I think it's that comfort zone. That's what I'm saying is we've got to change the habits. Through dedication, nothing is impossible to reverse or improve. But somebody's got to be dedicated to doing this. You must reinvent yourself often so that your business stays ahead of your competitors. You have to look at your processes and systems. Say, am I doing it right? Because I want to capture some of the market. Because you want to get a little bit extra of the pie. The market's not going to grow, but how do you get some more out of your competition? I always use the phrase, a wheel that won't move until you push it. Do what you like. If you want to get a wheelbarrow to move, you've got to push it, buddy. Management must realize they are the drivers of change and discipline in their business. Fundamentally, managers or DPs are the drivers of change and discipline in their business. And too often we forget that. But the DP has got to be well-trained or well-educated or whatever it is, certain guidelines to make it happen. And guys, if you do that, you'll have a successful business. Because the car market will be 500,000 new cars. Used cars are opportunities, but you've got to get a bigger slice of the pie because the market is competitive. Nobody's going to sit back and let you just eat their lunch. It doesn't work like that. It's up to you, as business owners or CEOs or OEMs or whatever the case is, to make sure those systems are implemented. And activities, to me, is critical in anything. Measure the activities, and I promise you the results will come. Yes, you've got to be hard-ass about it. No issue. But you've got to do that. So what needs, just this I thought I'd put at the end here, what we need to get going in South Africa. If not, we're going to be at 500,000, maybe even decline market in the long term. We need to get confidence back in the economy, get the base going so we can create jobs. Let's specialize in what we do best, service industry, tourism, agriculture, mining, and do the right things and grow the others. Deregulate the industry and make it easier to do business daily. I find at the moment there's so much regulation being thrown at dealers. I don't know what. I promise it's easier to sell a car in Australia than in South Africa. And that's a first world country. We're second, third world country. And we've got all this regulation. I'm going, God, let's make it easier. And we've got to appeal to NADA and NAMSA and the bodies and you people have to appeal to them to say, guys, you've got to engage government to say, guys, you've got to make it easier for us to do business. I always think about the informal sector. That's 28%, and there's a lot of money in that informal sector, trust me. Azaks make money. Let them buy cars with that cash. I know, get permission from wherever it is, but we've got to change the system a little bit. Or we've got to engage with government to make it easier to sell cars. Improve the skill base across the board. This will create better productivity and reduce the needs for handouts. Often I say to people, train your people better. That's not my job. I'm saying, guys, you need to train people. Not product, how to engage with customers. I don't care which sector you're in. And give investors policy of certainty. This will hold the rand slide. Hopefully we've prompted some thoughts. Hopefully you take something to think about. Thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful day. But guys, remember something. I'll just give you my last thing. Never forget the sun will rise tomorrow, no matter what. All your bills, they'll be there, and the sun will rise. You better make sure you have a good day. Thank you.